He's like a runaway locomotive. It's the Donald Express. Leaving the GOP beside themselves? What should, pray tell, be propelling his mighty appeal across all socioeconomic and racial boundaries to a mesmerized American voting populace? In a sentence, disgust with the Obama substandard administrative status quo. As the unstoppable virulent spawn of Michael Crichton's Andromeda strain, the politically anomalous Donald trumps all GOP competition while crashing through established party lines. With seemingly no cessation to his viral popularity in the face of a predictive political acumen, old guard pundits and political contenders alike are being summarily fleeced of poll numbers and left green with envy. He should have appealed only to a mere consumer advocate-sized Ralph Nader-esque radical niche constituency of passionately disgruntled Republican voters. Just a flash in the pan, a footnote of the duly pissed-off American cynicism to Obama's lackluster administration, Trump's naysayers whiningly bemoan. He's but a fading phenom, and, of course, as a Washington outsider, is completely unelectable, they nervously console themselves in the face of his undisputed explosive popularity. Even shameless Fox TV's bought and paid for, pious pontificating, know-it-all, radically slanted right-wing, blowhard political pundits and self-appointed so-called kingmakers laboring under the subversive, arrogantly entitled dictates of Rupert Murdoch's vast plutocratic wealth, along with a very petulant Sean Spicer and the other power brokers of the RNC, alongside Rich Lorry and Brent Bozell of the National Review magazine, who all, in mindless lockstep with one another, are beside themselves with venomous anger and dumbfounded paradoxical envy. Trump will eventually self-destruct as their angst-assuaging, malevolent marching mantra. But what Rich Lorry, Brent Bozell, and the other out-of-touch monomaniacal establishment old guard big boss cronies of their National Review Ayn Rand-esque propaganda publication need to realize is that the philosophic insinuation of their would-be revered, elitist, radically conservative magazine founder, William F. Buckley, Jr., was nothing more significantly relevant to the prevailing political ideologies of America's general populace as was the pulpit of his pedantically affected, self-styled, ultra-right-wing, verbose, plutocratic, blowhard demagoguery from which he spewed, and that Buckley's only reverentially recollectable contribution to the collective historical good in America's recent memory would have been the night this derailed, temper-tantruming, geriatric lunatic chose off Gore Vidal to a fistfight on the Dick Cavett TV show. So, what's his trick, the Donald? To fully appreciate his extraordinary exception to the orthodox electoral quotient process and his widespread resonance with the American people, we must first, as painfully as it is, examine the blithering incompetence of America's soon-to-be predecessor to the emerging tsunami of a Trump administration. To best understand Obama's delusions of grandeur in departing office, having left a presidential legacy mournfully shy of any immortal greatness whatsoever, would not exactly take the esoteric rocket science of an accomplished political graduate student scholastic sapience to decipher. But with just a cursory examination of Obama's latest administratively incompetent blunders while occupying America's highest office, one could easily perceive that his impotent policies are in dire need of a generous dose of introspectively reflective Viagra, namely, his economically disastrous and catastrophically costly health care program that embarrassingly and pompously even bears his own name, Obamacare, or the unearned normalization of diplomatic relations with Cuba despite their continued deplorable socioeconomic attitude towards America, along with their unchanging savage record of human rights violations. His complete impotency of denial in dealing with the ever-growing out-of-control ISIS terrorist issue, and now, in the wake of Obama's glaring military inaction, Russia has menacingly thrown themselves into the self-inflicted Middle Eastern witch's brew. Consider, after all, we wouldn't even have an ISIS issue in the world today, along with its ensuing repercussively tragic disenfranchised refugee populations, had Obama responsibly left a peacekeeping military buffering presence in Iraq after the conflict. Instead, as you recall, he incompetently withdrew all of our forces from the region, leaving a fertile, vacuous environment for out-of-control, militant radical Islamic fanaticism to flourish. And now, his latest half-witted brilliance of lifting sanctions and giving away the entire farm to Iran in a so-called self-verifying nuclear arms agreement, the impotent outcome of which will only proliferate nuclear violence in the Middle East region while putting the head of our sworn ally Israel in the guillotine. Let's face it, Obama's delusional lust for an immortal presidential legacy in this world, the moral encompassing leadership stature of, say, a Mahatma Gandhi or Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., or perhaps a Nobel Peace Prize for his insane Iran deal, has neither been earned nor deserved, and you can best believe that America's plenty pissed off at the moronic indiscretion of his lame duck administrative policies, frivolously pursuing his lust for presidential immortality. To wit, his latest vain executive action silliness of changing the name of Alaska's venerable Mount McKinley to Mount Denali, in an additional self-serving attempt to secure presidential immortality while currying favor with the indigenous Alaskan people, and now dictatorially invoking even more executive privilege to the misbegotten pious morality of his high-handed lame duck gun law agenda without any abiding, consensually concurring legislative sanction from the House or Senate or even his own constituency that put him in office in the first place. Obama has now single-handedly and covertly embarked on the first step of the long, insidious path to a national gun registry of the law-abiding American citizen that will eventually lead to the government's total abolition of the Second Amendment later on down the road, assuring that only criminals, fanatic religious terrorists, and lunatics will be the only ones having access to guns. And finally, Obama's neurotic Pollyanna obsession with closing Guantanamo, America's last bastion of totally secure incarceration for such admitted international, soon-to-be back on the loose, radical religious fanatical Muslim terrorist scoundrels as bin Laden's own personal bodyguards. Hello, anyone remember 9/11? So, as you might understand, when Donald Trump exhorts his battle cry for America, "Let's make America great again," it most surely resonates with you and me, America's silent majority. Yes, maybe it is time to pull that vintage, venerable old 60s political refrain out of retirement, dust it off, and relaunch it yet again with a renewed, relevant vigor. In this commentator's humble estimation, its relevance is now more profoundly applicable than ever before to America's future. So then, why Donald Trump for America's highest office? I'll humbly endeavor to advance some sapient theories on this very subject, but to do this, I must first share a little about myself with you. Hailing from a white, highly educated, economically advantaged socioeconomic background, I unapologetically enjoyed all the abundant privileges that came with such a life, including academic accomplishment and high culture. My late father was a Harvard Business School graduate and a highly successful Wall Street trader. Dad was also a decorated commander in the United States Navy. As a boy, I distinctly recall our family sitting around the evening dinner table as my father would expound on his considerable knowledge of the economy of nations and of world political events. He used to say to me, "Like Roosevelt said, son, you must speak softly, but carry a big stick." "What do you mean, Dad?" I asked him. "Davy," he would say, "the military solution in international affairs is as obsolete as the dodo bird. The mere destructive insanity of a nuclear holocaust would leave nothing for the so-called victor nation to claim as a prize, in that the infrastructure and economies of the defeated nations will be completely obliterated." "Then how should America defend herself?" I questioned him. "That's easy, son," he would say reassuringly. "First of all, you carry Roosevelt's proverbial big stick, a stout, modern, well-equipped military asset that's immediately deployable to anywhere in the world, but because of its devastatingly indomitable and intimidating threat to any potential adversary, you'd never have to use it. Then you economically sanction rogue nations to the bargaining table." "Well, what do you mean, Dad, sanction them?" I asked. Well, you simply take their wealth away and block their means of doing business in the world marketplace. There are many formidable mechanisms in such a potent business arsenal, such as tariffs, trade embargoes, and frozen or confiscated assets that can all be brought to bear. You simply cut off a rogue nation from the international financial banking system and back it up with a threat of awesome military might. Trust me, son, if your enemy can't buy food, water, or gas, they will, very quickly, have no other choice but to capitulate. But keep in mind, face-saving, fine-tuning diplomacy in these matters is also a very important humanly accommodating component to the beneficial execution of such potent economic measures. My late father was a considered, reflective, and intellectual person of great wisdom. His memory reminds me very much of another such prestigious American business school graduate running today for the presidency of our great land, Donald Trump. Is not the American presidency but a great international corporate business after all? So I ask you, America, why wouldn't we want to put our best, most accomplished, most experienced business asset as CEO of the White House? Someone that knows how to manage and delegate authoritative responsibility and run it like the huge international corporate business that it is. America, our beloved country, has deteriorated under the catastrophic incompetence of preceding presidential administrations, and make no mistake, we are now on the brink of economic collapse, and this of what Churchill so eloquently touted, our finest hour. It's truly time for those who contribute most to our great country, the silent majority, of which I am a proud member, to take back the power and make America great again, for everyone. We all, in our own small but most important way, have a patriotic duty to elect the one person that's truly unencumbered or beholden to any special interest group. In my most modest but highly informed opinion, there is no other academic on the planet that understands the intrinsic intricacies of these socioeconomic business scenarios better than myself, and I mean no one. Less, of course, Donald Trump himself. So, let's all do our patriotic duty and rally behind the leadership of Donald Trump, our country's most important and needed president since Abraham Lincoln. This news broadcast analysis and commentary comes to you from Gibraltar Studios in Washington. I'm Dave Thomas.